IDTR session of the fall semester. My name is Ben Ward. With me today we have Mike Ribble.
Get it straight.
With me we have Mike Ribble from the College of Education and Catalyst, and Shasti Mukherjee, who's also, like me, from the Office of Mediated Education. Today we're going to go over what the heck is a blog and do I want one. Mike's going to kind of give us a rundown and some of the current thinkings about it in terms of education, and then we'll probably introduce some concepts along the way afterwards and then open up some discussion towards the end. I'm not quite sure how we're going to end our session, so I'll go ahead and mention that this is being hosted on behalf of the Center for Advancement of Teaching and Learning, the Office of Mediated Education, and ITAC. And graciously, of course, Mike Ribble from the College of Education. So without further ado, thank you.
Good morning. What my role in this, to get us sort of started, is to give you a little bit of history, a little bit of background about blogs, and give you some examples. And I know that a lot of you have probably used blogs and probably are using blogs today, and there may be a few that aren't, but we also want to elicit some of your ideas and things that you're doing, possibly in your classroom, possibly outside the classroom, to get some ideas of how we can use blogs and what are some of the issues. We're going to, once we get through sort of the basics, we're going to go into a time of sort of talking about pros, cons, a little bit about issues and uses of blogs, because there are some things that will come up, and I'm going to give you some examples and show you some items of where some of this is going. To give you a little bit of history, a little bit of background about myself, I am out of the education department. I not only work there, but I also get my degrees from there. So I was a high school teacher, biology, chemistry. That was my first stab at education, then went into administration in 9/12, and then went into worked at the community college up in Nebraska. So I've kind of seen it throughout the different realms, so I've got a little bit of experience in some different areas. But the idea of blogs and where sort of my background comes from is more from an academic standpoint. The work that I did with blogs came out of my dissertation, which I just finished. Thank you. And the information that I work on, my dissertation work is actually in digital citizenship, which talks about appropriate use of technology across K-12, especially the 6-12 area. So just to give you a little bit of a concept, some of the things that I'm going to be talking about are K-12 issues and may not be as much an issue in higher education, but they are things that we need to think about as we go through and talk about blogs and talk about the issues that are in with blogs. So with that, let's just get an idea of what are blogs. Blogs are a fairly new phenomenon. We'll talk about the history, but here are a couple of definitions as far as what are blogs. The Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary defines it as a website containing online personal journal, reflections, comments, and hyperlinks. So fairly basic. Most people tend to liken blogs to a diary or a journal. That's typically when somebody says, what is a blog? They'll say, it's a diary, it's a journal. But I think we're going to see as we talk about this that blogs can be a lot more than just a diary. When people talk about it, that's how it usually comes off, is usually how that talks about. Then I did put Wikipedia's definition. I don't know if you've heard all the things about Wikipedia, so I'm not sure how much you want to put your stock into what Wikipedia says about it, but they do go on to say that it is diaries dealing with political campaigns, media programs, and corporations, which we will talk about a little bit more as we get a little bit deeper into the blog area. Yeah, I keep pushing the wrong button. I'm going to walk through some of these as we kind of talk about it. This happens to be one blog. This is sort of where I kind of got baptized into talking and thinking about blogs was meeting with this gentleman. He is works in K-12 mainly. His name is David Warlick, and you can see his address. And if you did when you walked in, if you picked up one of these sheets that says blogs, all those addresses that I'm using through here and additional ones are on the sheet. So don't feel like you have to write all of these down as we go through them. I just put them up there just so you can see. David Warlick has been doing a lot of work with blogs just over the last year plus, but he has become very visible in the especially educational community as far as someone that is very, very involved in the blogs. As a matter of fact, and I don't get any kickback from these, but I will tell you that he does have a book out, which is called Classroom Blogging. And if you're interested in this, like I said, I get no residuals from his books, but if you go to this 2 cents worth page, he does have his books available there. So if you're interested, you can take a look at them. The interesting thing about this is it does say Classroom Blogging and then a Teacher's Guide to the Blogosphere. He goes into creating blogs, what blogs are, what they can do, and some of it are things that we're going to talk about today. But he actually, and depending on how far we get into talking towards the end, he also talks about RSS, which we may get into towards the end. Really simple syndication, that's one definition of RSS, and even podcasting, which is a very, very hot item right at the moment, talking about communication via web or online sources. So this might be someplace that you might want to go to. Like I said, his is very, very educational oriented, and maybe those that are in the educational realm might be interested in this one. Okay, just to give you some history, a little bit of background of what kind of time frame we're talking about. The term weblog was actually coined in '97 by Jordan Barger, and then shortened later by Peter Merholtz, who actually did a lot more work. Matter of fact, you could still find Peter Merholtz's blog out there. It's peterme.org, and you can see his blog. And he still blogs on lots of different topics, everything from political to things about the blogosphere. But the idea of blogging or this type of communication is not really a new idea. It really goes back as far as AP, the AP Wire was really an early precursor of information that was updated on a fairly regular basis. Ham radio actually had things called glogs, which was just their own area of how they got together and shared information. That was a glog. And then, of course, most of you are probably used to Usenets, email lists, bulletin boards are all early precursors of the blogging idea. So this is not a real new idea, but you can see that in this fairly short time, even from 97 or 99, things have increased very, very rapidly as far as its infusion into the culture. I don't know if many of you watch evening TV, but their blogs are popping up quite a bit as far as part of the topics within popular culture. Lots of different shows will talk about their children or them going to blogs and talking about what's going on. So it is interesting how quickly this has come about. This happens to be one blog that's out there. I mean, of many. There are literally thousands, I think even up to a million blogs. This one happens to be on the Blogger site, which we'll talk about later as far as setting up blogs, but Blogger is one of the more popular, and I do have that address on here as far as setting up blogs. But this one happens to be, just happens to do with home technology. That's what this blog is about. This person blogs about things that are going on as far as home technology, dealing with this item has to do with web DVD and home theater. So the gambit of what's out there, there's all kinds of conversations that are out there in blogs. And if you go out there to any of these, you can find all kinds of different topics. So we talked about the beginnings, but how did it sort of spiral up to the point where we're talking about it today? A lot of these you probably are fairly familiar with, but if you don't think about them in context as far as how it really exploded, the political issues, talking about Trent Lott. There was a blog that actually had talked about Trent Lott's, well, it was, I'm trying to think of the context of that one. But like Howard Dean, for example. Howard Dean actually rode blogs to getting to the point that he was. He was actually using blogs in the 2001-2002 political scene to actually get people interested in Howard Dean. And that's how he got his name really out there. And they were using, we were talking about this yesterday with Ben, and we may talk about it more, but the whole idea of flash mobs. If you haven't heard about it, people will drop ideas out there, and people will either show up online or they'll show up to a physical place and actually gather together about a certain topic. And it's, you know, it explodes fairly quickly. 2003 in the Iraq War, they had, there was a gentleman that was, he was dubbed the Baghdad blogger, and as the bombs were dropping in Baghdad, he was blogging about it. And I can't think of the gentleman's name right now, but he actually did write a book after the war about his experiences as well. So that was a very real-time concept of, you know, how do we get information? And that's where even some of the AP and the news wires were getting information were from these people that were on the ground, that were right there. And probably one of the bigger ones is the Rathergate. If you remember, there was supposedly documents about our president that did not serve in the National Guard or didn't serve out his time in the National Guard, and there was these documents. Well, it was bloggers that actually exposed these documents as forgeries. So this is actually taking it to the next level as far as it's not just information, but it's actually creating information, because it's no longer, okay, we're just talking about what's going on, but now we're keeping an eye on the mainstream print and other communication media and saying, okay, we're not sure that we believe you. So we're going to do our own research, and then we're going to keep tabs on you. And this is becoming a fairly hot issue as far as, you know, what is considered the, you know, mainstream communication, and what is, you know, what are the other methods that are out there. So it's a very very interesting time as far as communication. This next site, again, I'm not going to apologize, but I will tell you that a lot of these are educational. This is another one. Weblog ED is actually by a gentleman by the name of Will Richardson, and Will Richardson actually has another book out that is also dealing with blogs, wikis, and podcasts. And if you go to Weblog ED, you will see right here, here is his book, Blogs, Wikis, and Podcasts. So if you're interested in his, and again, I don't know Mr. Richardson, and I don't get any kickbacks from his book. So just know that that there are more information out there, and I know that Ben and Shashti have taken down this information, and I believe they're looking into possibly purchasing them for the resources that they have over in OME. So, you know, if you don't wish to go out and get it yourself, there are other resources that are out there that you can look into. So, it's interesting. It just happens to be that this month in Technology and Learning, again, this is a more educational magazine, happens to have a review and a discussion with Will Richardson about his book and about blogs and podcasts. So interesting that they tend to fall into line with each other. So, you know, these are just examples. I'm not saying that these are the only ones that are out there. They are many, many more. To give you some ideas of just some basic numbers, and these numbers constantly change, you know how those work. This is from the source is pewinternet.org. If you haven't had a chance to go to Pew Internet, they do a lot of things, a lot of statistics, educational-wise, and they've kept a pretty close eye on blogging and internet use and those kinds of things. So if you're interested, do go to Pew Internet and you'll find some interesting resources. But just to give you some ideas as far as numbers, 27% of American internet users have visited a blog in 2005. I mean, you're talking over a quarter of internet users in the United States that are using it. And that's up 58%, so almost half again from just the previous year. Blog readers, and this is just out of Pew Internet, this is their statistics, tend to be young, male, well-educated internet veterans. That typically is who's on.
I notice you have that stated blog readers. Is that the same as blog users?
Users are people that visited a blog. So you can just be a blog visitor and read it and not be a blog supplier. I mean, actually putting material up there.
Okay, so this is the blog user?
Yes, up there. Just the visitors are on the top, that's 27%. But then we do go into the posting, which is a more involved process, and then we're talking about 12%. So about, a little less than half of those that go out there are actually supplying the comments to certain blogs. So it's still a fairly large, or fairly small number as far as when we talk about posting. But look at the difference. From 4% up to 12%, and we're just talking in an area of a couple of years. So there are, like I said, we'll see here in just a little bit. Ben's going to talk about their blog, but we're also going to talk about creating your own blog if you haven't done it yourself. As a matter of fact, when we go to Blogger, you'll see it says step 1, step 2, step 3, and you've got a blog. That's it. So it's not, they don't make it terribly difficult to do, and that's why there's so many out there and so many different topics. And we can talk about that later as we get into a discussion of where do we divide the line of everybody talking and nobody listening, or everybody supplying their own ideas and concepts versus how do we because a lot of times when we talk about the internet, we talk about it's a very divisible medium because everybody's sitting at their computer and they're all sitting there by themselves, But even in Will Richardson's article, he talks about, it's almost working the other direction because people are gathering together in these blogs and using RSS feeds and all of these kinds of things to actually come together as opposed to separate. So it's an interesting didactic when you talk about, technology usage, both, as a divisor and a gatherer. So, something that we can, maybe hit upon when we talk more about this. These, I just picked out some of these. These typically, this one and the next one are mainly political blogs, and there are a ton of them. There's actually, I don't know if I put it on this sheet or not, but yeah, I've even put a political blog directory on there. It is a page that has listing of pages and blogs that you can go and and it will even tell you this is a liberal blog, this is a conservative blog, and so you can pick and choose from whatever your political bent is and read what other people are saying or see what other people on the other side are saying too. So very interesting options as far as what kinds of blogs that are out there. And as I said, Whiz-Bang is just another one that's out there. Like I said, there are thousands. I can't even remember what the last number is. I'd have to look at my statistics, but I think there's even up to the millions of blogs and blog topics that are out there. So there is a unending well of information that's out there. Now, then you have to say, is there, what is truthful information and what is not? And when we talk about teaching these to students, and especially in K-12, that becomes a big issue as far as especially early on, and it's still an issue of what is on the internet, what's real, what's not real, and how do we define, what is what when we talk about information. So, very interesting. So, how can we use education, blogs in education? As I said, there are many different ways that that they can be used. Just things like posting content, information. This I've seen actually work in. My son happens to be a 7th grader here in Manhattan, goes to one of the middle schools, and his English teacher actually has her own blog. It's on one of the major blogs, and she posts what they are doing on a daily basis onto her blog. And she doesn't have her students post to it or anything like that, which we'll talk about in a second, but she just posts her information as far as what they're doing in the classroom. That's it. So that's one way to communicate, and I know I'm getting looks from Junction City. They're saying, well, let's think about that a little bit. We'll get to your issue here in a little bit. But anyway, there's lots of issues that go along with these. As far as networking and knowledge sharing, as a matter of fact, one of the first blog articles I saw was about a K-12 student that was actually, the instructor was using the blog to help with writing. And they wanted to be able to share their writing samples with other people. And she was actually posting it on this blog, and people from not only her class, but from around the country and around the world were helping critique her writing. Now, again, we can argue pros and cons on these, and I can already read your mind, what you're thinking. So, but there's all kinds of issues that are out there, but there are opportunities too. Instructional tips, announcements, annotated links that are out there. Students can use this as reflective journals, assignment submission, dialogues for groups, share resources. This is what I was talking about, that actually having students go out there, publish writings, publish information, and share that information between. Now, K-12, like I said, is very different than higher education because we have very different bents as far as what kinds of information should we share or not share. There are some blogs that are out there that allow the instructor to actually review blog information prior to it being published. Now, in higher education, that may not really be what you want, because that's stifling creativity, that's stifling freedom of information sharing, all that. But there are some that are available, and they are on the sheets. If you're K-12 or related to K-12, you can take a look at those. And finally, university. I thought this was a fairly interesting one, and I've only seen this just in the last probably year as far as universities starting to use blogs. And one is as a recruiting tool, and I'll show you a site here in a second that does that, and we'll talk more about it. But second, about announcements. And what I thought was very interesting after all the floods and the hurricanes and everything that happened along our southern coast, there were a fair number of universities that were posting blogs about what was going on and what their students should do. And this was the way that they were communicating with students that had dispersed all over the United States. So they were able to say, okay, if you want to know what's going on down here, just go to our blog. And the president of I can't think of which one it was. It's the one that's in New Orleans. Tulane, that's the one. Tulane had a real prominent, it was on their main site. If you went to tulane.edu, you would find this blog, and the president of Tulane was posting every single day about what was going on and what they needed to do and who they could contact and all of that kind of information, seeing as a lot of these students had dispersed from Louisiana out to East Coast, West Coast, mid-center, everywhere. So it was a wonderful way for them to communicate on a very large basis without sending out emails and those kinds of things. So very interesting. But the recruiting tool is, this happens to be Embry-Riddle University. What they use it for is they hand select students to actually blog on a daily or semi-daily basis about what they do at Embry-Riddle or other universities, and so that students that are interested in coming to whatever university it might be can read these blogs and see what do they do on a daily basis. Would this be someplace that I would be interested in, and find out more about the university without actually going to the site and visiting it. So it's just another recruiting tool, but it's an interesting one because this gentleman, Carlos here, is just talking about, you know, going to class and meeting with his friends and what they do, and it's just an interesting way to communicate back and forth as far as the higher education. And this is just one example. So we've talked about a lot of the, what we can do and what are some of the things with blogs and how they came about, but some become issues when we start talking about blogs. And I was telling Ben when I came in, I tend to get lucky as far as either lucky or there's so much material out there that it always happens. But when we talk about our students out there, are they using these materials? This is today's Collegian. If you've looked at it in the Street Talk, right inside today's Collegian, says, which do you prefer, MySpace or Facebook? Which happens to be two very popular blogging sites that especially higher education students tend to use. And so here it is. I mean, they took almost half of the fold, all talking about those two sites. And is this good, bad? That's for history to look at. But a lot of times, you go to these sites, if you've ever looked at them, they'll write just about anything up in those sites, and they typically do. And there's been some issues, especially, again, I'm going to talk from a K-12 perspective, but there's been some issues of where students have gone to MySpace or to Blog or whatever, and they've posted things, and their parents, being good parents, go and they look at these, and the kids are just, they're surprised that their parents are reading this private journal. Well, this private journal is supplied to millions of people, not only in this country, but around the world. And they're very upset about it because they think that this is their private information, their private ideas and thoughts that they've put out there. It's an interesting, interesting concept. So there's lots of things. I've just brought some of these articles. I've been collecting them. This one happens to be Scholastic Administrator. This is, again, an educational. This is the Blog Bog. It goes on for about 5 or 6 pages talking about blogging. This young gentleman, a sophomore at a school, I believe in Illinois, yes, wrote in his blog about how he was going to go to the school dance and he was going to introduce everybody to his little friend. Well, his little friend is related to the movie Scarface, and his little friend happened to be a gun. So if you haven't seen Scarface, I've just ruined the whole plot for you, I'm sorry. But anyway, but this was not on a school site. This was done outside of the school and done on their own computer. So we talk about the whole issue of rights of who owns the material, who should see the material, all of that. So that's another. This one comes out of AZ Central. This is actually out of New Zealand. And this one talks about, it says, bloggers beware, cyber libel suits on the rise. And now, we talk about freedom of speech and we can write whatever we want. People are starting to take others to court about what they've said on their blog sites. So we need to think about what we say and what we do out there. This one happens to be out of New Jersey. New Jersey students ordered to take down blogs. Now, this happens to be a Catholic high school in New Jersey, and the students have their blogs on, trying to remember which one it was. It was either Blogger or MySpace or one of those. So it was not it wasn't their high school's blog site, but their administrators are saying you need to take down your blog. And guess what? As soon as the ACLU heard about it, they have stepped in, and now they've said that no, you can't order them to do that because this is freedom of speech. So where do we take all this? This is just another one. Again, this is out of the Christian Science Monitor. Schools grapple with policing students' online journals. And again, that's more K-12, but you're starting to see some of the issues that are coming about. The next point talks about things written today may be held against you in the future, and I'm going to talk about a couple. Again, the Collegian, front page. This was several days ago. This was, a lot of days ago, September 21st, last semester. I tend to lose time of space. But it says, Open Diary, Zanga.com allows students to post online journals, communicate with friends. Right there. And Zanga tends to be one of those that you hear about, especially with issues with online journals, and I'm going to go to Zanga here in a second. But that's, right here on the Collegian, this is not somewhere far, far away when we're talking about this. This one I found very, very interesting. This is USA Today, front page. This one wasn't that long ago. This was actually March 9th, 2006, right here on the front page. What you say online could haunt you. People that are hiring, potential employers, are actually going out to blogs and searching for names of potential employees and seeing what they had to say or what was said about them on online journals. So things that you say and do and think that was cute and fun in college could make a big difference to your employment in the future. Now, I don't know that this is a whole, the whole issue of, what are the rights and who can do this, but again, you go to Blogger or MySpace or Zanga, these are all free and available to anyone, just like my example of students getting mad at their parents reading their journals. So the material is out there. The material is freely accessible to anyone. So again, where does this boundary fall between freedom of speech and where my rights are? So there's a very interesting division here when we start talking about all of the different ramifications when we talk about it. And as I promised, I do have Zanga.com's website. I'm not going to go to any individual parts of the blog, but if you're interested, you can go to any of these and you can just go in as a guest. You don't even have to sign up, and you can read a lot of these blogs. And you might be surprised by what some of the things that you see and read that's out there. So some interesting things. Okay, what I've done is sort of try to lay some foundational work as far as what are blogs, what they can do, some of the positive and maybe even some of the negative aspects that happen when you talk about using blogs, or even when we talk about some of the others, when we talk about some of the different online communication software, which Ben and Shashti and I are going to talk about in a little bit. So, but we're going to segue now, and I'm going to have Ben and Shashti talk a little bit about the blog that they've created that actually is on the OME server, talk a little bit about what they've done, what kinds of topics that they're working on, and Ben's even later on he's going to pick one of these sites and actually show you how simple it is to actually create a blog. So if you're interested in going out there and getting into the blogosphere, we'll give you some roadmaps to get there. So Ben, go ahead.
Thank you much. Appreciate your time here, and I'm sure Mike's going to jump in with us as we go on through the latter half of this session. More shit I got to try to put it on. All right.
Now, unbeknownst to probably the majority of people in here, the Office of Mediated Education, the instructional design group, decided to bravely try our own blog, of which there have been, I guess, what was it, a little over 4,000 hits to just over the little over a month that it's already been alive. And we just started throwing up information, things that we thought were interesting, part of the internet life, but a lot of it has to do with instructional design, how technology affects education, things that you might want to consider if you're developing course ideas, and even a few notices of things going on. So in a sense, we're using it as just a way to disseminate information to anyone who should happen to fall across it. As I said, it's a relatively new thing. We've only really, the three of us have been posting under pseudonyms, all three of us. And Shaolin Haiju, who couldn't make it, that was actually her last post. And the next one we will see is Shasti's. And Shasti's going to have to help me because my Latin is not particularly good. Shaolin chose a Latin pseudonym.
And my Latin is not fabulous either. Is this better? Can everybody read now? We have like several different categories here on different topics, like on research, on teaching and learning, instructional designing. Sometimes we even talk about our events like the IDTRoundtable today. If you go to the site, you'll see it's there. The next one that's coming up is also announced there. If there's other presentations going on that we are aware of, we talk about that as well. It's kind of our way of just putting the word out there.
It's very much a very organic, social kind of free-form happenstance effort. And in truth, most blogs are that. And as we go further into this discussion, you'll hear me refer to things like social software, which is kind of the up and rising term for software like blogs, and also things like wikis and even search engines and so forth that go into how people can share their own information back and forth and their own interest with other people. Is there any questions about that? Does anybody know what a wiki is? Or okay, a wiki's kind of like an open source. Wikipedia is probably the most famous of them all. It's basically an open source search engine, for lack of a better way of putting it, and anybody can open it up and contribute to it and then tag things that then will cross-reference with other things that exist in the wiki, and it just organically grows in an exponential size. This can be a good thing and this can be a bad thing. Wikis actually had to endure a lawsuit about the validity of some of the information that has just kind of rose up on their site. So it can, as I said, be a bad thing when it's totally open. Our site is not a wholly open site. Only a set number of people can contribute. We keep adding people onto that. So if you have a dying urge to join in, please let us know afterwards, and we'll see about creating your account or at least giving you a post or two. Because this is really just meant to get the word out about experiences online and teaching online and instructional design. So there's a wide variety of things that are actually happening on the site. Is there anything?
Well, we're all under pseudonyms, so we don't post by like Shashti or Ben or Shaolin. It'll be fun for you all to go read and figure out who each one of us is. We have 3 pseudonyms. We have instructions not included, ID Alochona, and I'm going to try the Latin word, Erudicio long. I have to see how it's spelled. I can't say the second part, Loginquitus, so I don't know if I'm doing good justice to that. But I said to Shaolin, and I'm giving this away, I said, everybody breaks my name, so I'll just go ahead and break yours for a change, and everybody will be forgiving. So, and most of these are archived, so if you go back, you can get to see. We started this project like around February, and we've just been doing this since then. We use the Software Express engine. We paid, I think, $200.
But there are, in fact, there's a wide variety of blogging tools out there, from the ones that are free, like Blogger and such, which is probably the best known of them, that actually Google has shares in right now and pretty much controls, to fully pay for software like use a movable type, which was developed by 6apart. And actually, if you even go out to Yahoo Small Business and you get a Yahoo Small Business account, they have the blogging tools as part of the account now. So it's amazing how it's kind of disseminating through the whole web culture. So it's really just a lot of it is personal preference. And you'll find different types of bloggers using different software. Things like students in the K through 12 tend to grab onto things like Blogger and so forth because it's just easier and it's free. And we'll show you in just a second how quick it is to actually just hop out there and create an account. But then you'll find like the old hands who've been doing this since the early 2000, 2001, so tend to use things like LiveJournal and create things like closed blogs where it requires a password just to get in. And they use it to create a small community of close friends who just keep tabs on each other and share back pictures and what's going on in their daily life. And so there's a wide variety of uses for blogs, not all of them purely educational or political. In fact, the majority of them are probably not.
I wanted to say that we do have RSS syndicates, so if you didn't want to come out to the site every day and look for the new postings, you can just sign up for the RSS feed and then it will just come into your RSS downloader, RSS read aggregator, sorry, and then, or you could have a Yahoo email account, and if you have a Yahoo email account, you have a My Yahoo page, and it gets downloaded into that area as well. So.
And that's another example of social software. Is anybody, RSS is a little tricky, and Shasti's actually written a couple of posts about that. Yes. So if you're not familiar with that, it stands for Real Simple Syndication. So it's very possible to create yourself a blog and be out in the middle of everywhere all of a sudden, very quickly. And if you hit a hot topic, you can go from, you know, having 20 people who periodically view what you've written to all of a sudden thousands and thousands of people hitting your website just because they're curious about what you might have posted. I think we'll just go ahead and jump into creating an account unless anybody has a question. Yes?
What's the advantage of getting a paid versus a free blog?
The variety of tools is the biggest difference. You really have very limited choices of what you can do with a free one. The other one is actually where does the information reside? A lot of the free accounts, in fact the vast majority of them, it's on another server somewhere else, whoever is hosting or running it. Like the Blogger, if you haven't paid for a version of it, it's going to be pretty much out on a Google server somewhere. And so that limits what you can do with it. And most of my friends who've been blogging for half a decade, as I said, use things like LiveJournal, and then they will actually buy the software and they'll have their own domain and they'll load it up and they'll go through all the pain and effort of doing it, which isn't great, but it's still a bit of effort. And so that they always have control of their information and it's always theirs. The more expensive it gets, the more features you typically get. We run through Expression Engine. The other big one that a lot of people tend to grab onto, as I said, is movable type. And you'll see a lot of commercial bloggers use those because you have a lot of cascading style sheet control. You have a lot of extra features in terms of archiving and active calendars and some really neat things that can be just popped in there. And once they're up and running, using them is about as difficult as just sending an email. I mean, you just log in and you post and it's there. And it takes care of everything else for you. So it's really, they're really convenient, which is part of the reason they just keep proliferating out on the web. It's a really convenient way to kind of create a living document on the web. And that's probably the big difference between free ones and paid ones.
And some of those you can control who subscribes or not,
yes.
if you wanted to keep it more private.
You get a whole list. Like in ours, we can not only control who can access it, which we haven't. We've left it open. We can control who can post. You can control whether or not people can post comments or whether you can review comments before they're posted. You can even set it up so you can review posts before they're posted. So there's a lot of granularity with the more expensive products on how you can set up permissions and number of users and so forth.
Do some of those free ones also allow you to control if it's open to everybody, or?
I don't know of that. Is that?
Yeah, there are some that you can create your own, like in LiveJournal. You can also, like MySpace, you have to be actually added into it. Xanga does the same thing.
Blogger, you can control it too.
So you can make a private space on them.
I was just thinking in terms of if you were using it in a classroom environment, you didn't want to have it open to everybody, but you might be able to control that a little more.
And I agree with you. That'd probably be one of the most useful features when using it in the classroom environment. I saw someone.
Well, do like the search engines then come up with this, even though you may have the control? If you put something out there with your name on it, you're like the Google and Yahoo search engines behind that?
With anything on the web, eventually Google and all the search engines will find it. They got little bots out there adding to their content continually. But yeah, the moment you click on the RSS feeds, this kind of ups the ante a great deal, because you're exposing a great deal number of hooks that can then, you know, aggregators can grab onto. And so it's pretty much just like flashing a sign on top of a building, I'm here, I'm here. But you don't have to turn that on. Not all blogs do you need to. It's frequently an on-off switch sort of affair.
Can I remove something after I post it?
Can you? Yeah. Yes. Will that prevent it from disappearing forever? Not necessarily, because there are efforts out
I think
on
it
the
also
web to
depends which end you're putting it on. And like for us, when we have backhaul control over this blog site, we can actually go in and, because we're writers and we're posting, we can actually delete something. But I don't know if you're a front-end user, if you'd be able to delete and hide it from the whole world. I don't know.
That's
Mike.
true.
That I could speak to.
It depends on the situation
Yeah.
and so forth. But even people
who have their own software and everything, there are efforts out now currently to archive the World Wide Web. So anything that may have been out a couple of years ago and maybe no longer part of what's the live web can still be found if you know where to go. So it has a nasty habit of coming back. You have to be really careful with these kinds of things. It's very much public communication unless you put it behind a password protected functionality within one of these tools, because it's out in the open for everybody.
What are some of the major differences? Why are blogs becoming so much more popular versus like the old-fashioned bulletin boards and discussion groups and things like that? Why is this replacing those?
I think because blogs become very much a personal endeavor in a lot of ways. It gives somebody a lot of control over their own space, and then they can actually kind of build up a group of friends that cycle and they share other personal spaces more than anything. Bulletin boards, I mean, they pretty much hop from topic to topic, and you'll see a thread get very hot for a while and there'll be a lot of posts, and then it's done and it's gone. Whereas a blog is a snapshot of somebody's life, and it can keep on living, and little interesting things will keep filtering out, and so people will keep visiting. So it's another way in which people are taking the time to kind of build connections. And some of these connections can be really intense. Some of them can be very unique overall. If you want to really see some of the fun things happening out in blogs, or things that might be intriguing, is to start looking at blogs for like professional writers. Because you're going to find a community out there that's very strong. These are people already prone to writing. And so you're going to find them sharing back and forth and cross-referencing each other and sharing ideas. And you're going to see some very, very powerful blogs all of a sudden popping up.
Abject learning, point.
Yeah. And technologists are also big into the blogging realm. One thing we haven't mentioned that kind of Apple has helped spur along are things like vlogs, video blogs. If you got the equipment to do it, you can sit there and record yourself and post it. And there's a vlog I go to every day just because it's fun. And it's 3 minutes out of my life, but I get to laugh, so it's nice. There are lots of them starting to spring up, and truthfully, the Macintosh has made it really easy. You pretty much.
Do you like to go to that page?
I tend to go to Rocket Boom just because it's fun, and it's actually one of the more popular vlogs out there, and they were featured, it was Amanda Cogden, she was featured in the South by Southwest Interactive Conference, and she tends to drag in little pieces of politics and technology and just idle amusement all in the same one, kind of almost tongue-in-cheek. So if you're looking for anything terribly serious, half the time you're not going to find it. The other half the time she'll be talking about things that are really kind of neat, like, you know, Panasonic having their new VariCam that's coming out that's under $10,000 and why it's so neat. Or
You've actually written about it.
yeah, there's one post in here that I grabbed some of the information she was sharing with. They're out of Prague. There's a group of programmers who've developed an app for Firefox that allows for peer-to-peer sharing. It's going to be an awful lot like Instant Messenger, but it'll be a little client that you just download, and then they're hoping in the next few months they'll be able to release it, and then anybody who's got Firefox will be able to just have a buddy list and share files just that quickly and easily. So it may be the big change in browsers as a whole, because suddenly you're going to have all this extra functionality and power that never used to exist in it. So you can find these things out there. The web's just kind of like this big tidal force of information moving back and forth. And a lot of the people who've kind of shifted into that culture live in blogs one way or another, at least partially. And they're growing in number. So I think you're going to find this being more and more influential. Like the Collegian article, which is your favorite, the Facebook or MySpace. And they're interesting places. Travel carefully if you do go there. But things like MySpace originally was designed just to promote independent bands. And you can still find a large number of people with their own small bands, cutting their own CDs, trying to make a name for themselves. And you can even find up-and-coming auteurs trying to push their films on there, and you'd be surprised who's hiding out in some of these places. Any other questions or thoughts? Or do you want to all see how it goes into building one real quick? Because it really is just, oh, we have one more question. Yes.
What about the IP issues? I mean, I worry about that because technology is going faster than the legal issues. And, you know, if you're faculty and you put any valuable research content out there, I mean, I wouldn't want to put anything out.
And you really, truly have to be careful about this. Anything that you wouldn't want to willingly just mention out in the middle of a faculty meeting, you should think twice about saying anywhere else. Because this stuff gets out and about. I talked this summer with a copy editor at a writers conference, and she said, quite honestly, most publishers, if they found out that you've published a good portion of your content out on the web for free, that pretty much sours the deal for them, because they don't really want to be people getting for free what they want to sell. And so you really do have to think twice about what you put out there. However, at the same time, there are things, I always get the name, what is it, the Volix, I always get the wrong. There is actually a legal blog out there with 3 lawyers out of Berkeley, I believe it is, who've actually built quite a name for themselves, not writing legal reviews, but actually just to kind of hit and miss, hitting the tops of what are some of the more pertinent legal issues that are occurring. And so, and since that they're not writing reviews, they're actually getting a really good sense of the pulse of what's happening out there in terms of this. And so they have a huge following of people who come there just to kind of get a preview of what's really happening out in their profession. So if you're willing to give snippets of yourself, I think you'll develop quite a readership, and even people that you can build up a following with and additional relationships with over time. Yes.
Can I have a follow-up, a more general follow-up question? How's the university going to integrate or merge this with KSOL and podcasting and text messaging? You know, where the students are and what they want to use.
Honestly, it's been on the table, and so it's being discussed right now as we speak. There is a very strong movement among a lot of learning management systems to provide these tools to both students and faculty. And I know it's going to be coming in our future. How near in the future, I don't know. It may be a year from now, it may be a couple of years from now. But I know it's being seriously discussed and seriously researched. And in fact, there have even been some pilots with things like podcasting and RSS feeds. So we're very actively pursuing that. Using it responsibly, though, the best we can hope to do is get the information out to the people who are involved and provide the appropriate training where applicable, and make sure everybody knows what the liabilities are up front. But the benefits, I think, outweigh some of the risk. If you use it responsibly, I think, in terms of just raw ability to communicate on so many different levels, it makes it a great chance for us all to just leap out there and draw people into our own learning and to our own teaching.
Just wanted to say that we will be adding a design to the look and feel of this blog, and we're pretty much waiting to reveal it to you all in this presentation. And I think from now on we're going to go really live, and we're going to be advertising about our blog to various listservs and newspapers and different areas. I know Sheldon has a whole list that we're planning to do.
Has already done so.
Right, so it'll be going pretty public. So please visit before it gets into talking about the book.
And if you have something you want to share out there, don't hesitate. I mean, in many ways, we're trying to create a very open forum to share some of the more positive aspects of education and the World Wide Web and the culture that has evolved around it. So I'm going to cut here in front real quick, unless we have any other questions, and we'll just kind of quickly hop out into Blogger, and as Mike said, it really is just 3 steps. And it's not any different than building a Hotmail account. You'll have to choose I have all sorts of names. I've been blogging a bit too much lately. You'll have to come up with one. And so we'll do one on the spur of the moment. And then we create a password. And then we come up with a display name. Does anybody have one they think would be appropriate? And this is what will be the name of the blog at this point. Anybody want to throw one out, or should I just go ahead? We'll do Confessions of a Techie. And then it'll want an email address. And you must accept the terms. And I do recommend you read through the terms. Just to know who owns the information. I think you'll be surprised with the blog software that you don't purchase. And which means somebody can trace me down.
Yeah, but how safe is that as far as spamming in the future? I mean, is your address now out there? Do you want to actually use a Yahoo account for that blog site rather than your real one?
That's a good question, and the answer is it depends on which software you're using and so forth. I'm pretty much already dead to the world in terms of my email address being out there. I used to keep a Hotmail account that I would just dump into these places. I gave up. Spam has won the war for me. But that is a good question. And some services are really good about it, others are not. And in fact, if you really want to go to the effort, you can actually even create things like an anonymous blog, but you have to work at it. You really do. And if you feel the need for that, I recommend you do serious research before you do it, because you'd be amazed how easy it is to trace people on the web. It leaves a very heavy footprint, especially for those who are unfamiliar of where those footprints are. So I would be a little hesitant in a lot of cases. And I'll just go ahead. We'll just pop it in here, sand some spaces. And we'll check to see if it's available. And it is available. Now they have this word verification, and this is just largely to keep automated software from going out there and just continually generating more and more blog accounts. There are some less scrupulous people who use services like this and try to hijack things en masse. And then we're to the final step where we just pick a look and feel for it. And these are just a variety of templates they give away right off the bat. If you start using more advanced features, you can even add your own template in there. And some of these are actually made by some very prominent designers, which is I always thought was interesting. You know, like this one here is by Jeffrey Zeldman. Does a list apart and so forth. So if you're big into web design, you start recognizing some of these names of people who've just given away designs. So I think I picked one, didn't I? Okay, and then we'll continue. Your blog has been created. Start posting. So I just click, and there it is. That's what the back end of most blogs look like. It's not very difficult. It really is like posting a message on a message board, and away you go. There's a series of settings that you can put in. Let's see if it'll catch up with me. You know, you want to add to the blog listing, show quick editing on your blog, show email post links, global settings. You can even go out there and delete your blog, which we may do here briefly. And you can change your templates. Okay. And we can just view the blog. Hi everyone, my first post. And it's out there that quickly. So it's out there for the whole world to see. And it takes that little effort. And I guess that's part of what makes blogs dangerous, is it takes that little effort. So always think twice before you hit that post button, because it's a lot like email. Once it's out there, it's out there. You can't just all of a sudden, hey, I want that back. You might do it, but it's already been out there for a little bit, and that's all it needs. I believe this is pretty much where we reach the end of our presentations and our demos. We just got questions for anybody. You have one back there?
I guess my question would be kind of back to the case state and the responsibility of, it seems there's kind of a, you know, we're making big effort right now to secure information and get rid of EIDs or social security numbers and protect. You know, there's this whole privacy and protection thing. Are the disclaimers, you in the terms and conditions pretty strong on here that when students choose to do this or faculty choose to do this, that the university's protected. I guess I'm thinking of something said, it's linked to K-State and all of a sudden we're responsible for it.
And since the tools are yet to be as available, I can't say that these disclaimers have yet been generated. Do they exist?
Are you saying like on Blogger, or are you saying like on K-State Online?
Well, I guess in general, if I'm a,
Well,
I'm a faculty member and I somehow promote the use of this technology.
Mm-hmm. And I asked Kathy, and I even asked Harv Townsend about policies of the university back in September, if there were blogging, and I actually asked quite a few, and no one could tell me that there were any policies at this point as far as university-wide towards blogs. So the answer is no, there really isn't. If you just go out and do it on, you know, Blogger or Live, you know, Liveline or whatever, but or LiveJournal, it just you know, there just isn't a lot of policy out there.
Actually, I suggested that for the intellectual property. The guy had to make some recommendations about a month ago. He said one of the areas that they really need to come up with some suggestions for is blogging, because there's nothing, no information, no nothing. It doesn't exist according to our IP center.
But as you can see, you know, the Collegian is talking about it. That, you know, it's being, you know, promoted out there. I did a Tech Bites on it, you know, and my whole thing is what Ben said is just beware, you know, buyer beware kind of thing. You know, you have to be careful of what you put out there, that who can see it and how, you know.
Yeah, you can be sued because some parents were not happy about what their kids got put out about their kid on MySpace.
Oh, yeah.
And so they wanted to take that stuff off. You know, there's privacy laws about some of this stuff under 18. So there's a lot of it.
Are there other blogs currently hosted on K-State servers other than the one that you presented, to your knowledge?
One or two.
There's one or two.
NABC.
The NABC has one.
And there's some talks about some leadership committee groups where they want to start using blogs among themselves just to communicate.
As
but they haven't started yet.
They're pretty tight, I think, right at the moment.
You think the library has one?
I think the most of the blogs you're going to find currently that are on K-State are like IDOS. They're pretty straightforward. We have disclaimers in place, and we're very open about what we're looking for in terms of content. And even though it can be a little lighthearted or fun, it's very much professionally oriented. And that's always been our stance since we even came up with the idea.
If a department wanted to, or a program wanted to start their own blog on a K-State server, are there things in place for them to do that or to oversee that at this point in time? No.
No, there are not.
No.
There's a question over here.
With the way this is set up, now what happens? I'm out there surfing the web, and I come across this Confessions of a Techie. I just read it?
Yes.
And I can post to it?
Oh, it depends on, some of them post comments to them and say, you know, like your information, like to hear more, you know. Some of my posts, you know, are, you know, very verbose and thanking me and these are things. And then one I got was sort of an advertisement to finishing my doctorate. So, I mean, so you get a very wide range of things.
And do other viewers then see those posts?
They can see those comments.
I see. But you can take those comments down if you don't like them?
I believe so. Most of them you can take them off.
I have a blog for my association. We're the intellectual, that's how I made the recommendation for the IP Center. We have the Intellectual Property Committee for a national association. And on that, then, because we use movable type, so it has some really cool features. So there's like 3 of us that have administrative access, and we go in and put on stuff, we can delete stuff. And we let anybody on it, not just our committee members, but maybe because we're so very boring. We never have any problem with anybody posting. It's supposed to be a problem.
So then, liken this to, we're going back to the bulletin boards, where you do have just a thread and you take it down, and pretty soon you end up with some sort of vulgar, you know, stupid thing at the very bottom, so it dies.
I can
Or-
take it off. I can take it off.
Is this more like a web page where you've got various
Yes.
layers, and so now you can go over to a different topic, and now you can post over here about something else, and pretty soon there's another topic over here that you can post about, and now you've got this big structure with lots of information and lots of different places to go visit?
Absolutely.
That's what we were talking about with the RSS feeds. Is a lot of blogs out there have that ability that you can pull down that information on a daily basis, and it will aggregate it in one place. And so you don't have to go site to site to site. It'll come to you, and you can look at it. So yeah, a lot of people will use aggregators, and there's even aggregators for not just blogs, but even for New York Times, USA Today. You can pull down information on lots of topics using an RSS feed. And basically all an RSS feed is just a link that pulls down information. And we've even talked about RSS in K-12 instances where you could post things as an administrator and give it to basically push it out to your people and say, I want you to read this, or these are things that are important, and I'm going to push it out to you using my RSS.
And this is easier to use than actually a web page is then?
Oh, yes.
We always used to host web pages, and everybody used to have their own web page.
Well, yeah, I think that's a lot of the popularity is that what you saw there, what Ben just did, he doesn't have to go in and write code and all of that. He just types, here is my first blog, this is what I'm doing, and he doesn't have to go in and have to have Dreamweaver and have to do all the, the coding and putting the CSS codes, and he just goes in, types, hits publish, and it's there.
Yeah,
It's already part of the engine.
And it's
4 years ago, what everybody did was just went out and got their own web page.
Well, see, the cool thing about, blogs is that you go in and you add stuff, like, for example, I put up whatever we're doing for our association. I've got proposals up now. Well, I also have an archive there for PowerPoints of everybody's proposals and presentations from like the last several years. So that not only do people use it for just, hey, what's going on with my committee, and are we going to do this, we're going to do something else, and who wants to do that. We also link to a website, actually an IP website that attaches there. And then people can come on for any particular reason and see what our panel has presented over the years and download. So we get hits, not just because people want to add stuff, but because we aggregate stuff there for people to use for their own presentations.
And I think that's exactly what we're trying to do as well. In terms of information, just aggregating from everybody and one item.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, if you see that little link anywhere on a place that has RSS feeds, right there, will give you the code so that you can aggregate in the content from another site into your site. And I know that sounds, you just kind of click on that and it'll give you the code. Don't try to read it or discern it, just copy it and paste it onto your page, and that'll aggregate that content onto your page.
So you're not having to write all this. This is all provided for you. The feed actually creates all of that for you. And it's actually very simple to write an RSS feed. I'm sure if you go to Shashti's, I'm sure you probably have some information about it. But if you can write an RSS feed in just minutes.
And the whole point is so that every time you wanted to find out what we posted on our site, you don't have to actually physically remember the URL and go to it and make time for it. It will automatically come to you. And if for some reason on 1 week we didn't talk about a topic that was not interesting to you, you didn't have to read it. But it's almost like getting mail in your inbox, and we select which one we want to read first. So that's the same thing.
I think we're coming up on the conclusion. Any other questions, thoughts?
What's the point of using a pseudonym?
We did it just for fun. That's truthful. When we were designing this, we were trying to make instructional design at least a little more playful than it seems straight out of the box. I remember going to the Madison, Wisconsin conference of teaching and learning at a distance a couple of years ago, and keynote speaker said, how do you want to make sure, if you want to kill all the fun in a course, there's an easy way to do it, and that's just invite an instructional designer to help you. And they all laughed, and the sad part was is 3/4 of the room was instructional designers, and they knew it was true. Because it's real easy to take pedagogy and educational theory and even just practice and beat it to death. and forget that learning and teaching can be fun somewhere along the process. And I think that's a lot of the reason we built this in the beginning, was just to remind people there's neat things happening out there. There's a lot of stuff you can play with and explore with, and make both teaching and learning a rich experience again, and have some fun and laugh while you're doing your job, and rediscover things in your own teaching that teach you things in the process, which was part of our goals in creating the Instructional Design Open Studio. So that's once again, as I keep saying, please, if you want to contribute something, if you find something neat, or you had a neat idea, or you saw something that you think would be applicable, please drop us an email or ask for an account and jump in with us. And we'd be more than glad to see you there.
Just before we end, Roger wanted to share something.
Oh, yes. Yeah, no, I had just a quick announcement. The College of Business and its internationalization program is going to be sponsoring a lecture by a well-known national speaker named Susan Patrick, and she's going to provide some rather startling statistics about the U.S., what we're educating in universities, and what the job demands of the future are expected to be, and how much of a discrepancy between these two things are. She's going to talk about how information technology and distance learning can close that gap a little bit over the next upcoming while. So I'll put these back at the table back there for anyone who wants to get one. It's April 26th. She's an excellent speaker. She's a keynote speaker at a business education conference I recently attended, and we're very fortunate to have her from K-State, so it's back there for those words.
Well, I want to thank you all for attending. I especially want to thank Mike Ribble for guiding us along this path, and we look forward to seeing you in a month.
The Landon Lecture Series.
Chemicals are developed.
I would like to take a moment to congratulate all of you who are graduating today with virtual commencement.
Kansas State University's Office of Mediated Education.